This is Brad Hughes, School Principal and Chief Encouragement Officer from Ontario, Canada. And I've got some good news for you. You found the Good News, Brad News podcast, amplifying stories of heart-led educators moving from positive intention to action. Great people like you, improving kids' lives through service, connection, and finding the fun. So glad you're here. Let's get started. Hey there, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022, and welcome back to episode 27 of the Good News, Brad News podcast. I am your host, Brad Hughes, and as you settle in and get comfortable, I invite you to take a closer look with me at some fascinating facts about the number 27. Now, 27 is the total number of letters in the Spanish and Hebrew alphabets, the number of cubes in a Rubik's Cube puzzle, and the number of bones in the human hand. 27 is the only positive integer that is 3 times the sum of its digits. 2 plus 7 times 3 equals 27. As well, 27 is the sum of the integers from 2 to 7. 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 equals 27. And this 27th episode is adding up to something special too, with my guest, educator and author, Debbie Tannenbaum. And I've got to hand it to Debbie, as you'll hear, she really is doing all of the things. Debbie is an elementary school technology specialist in Fairfax County, Virginia, USA. She's a wife and mom of 4 children aged 13 to 20. She's also the host of the EdTech website Tannenbaumtech.com, a speaker, facilitator, blogger, and published author. Transform, Techy Notes to Make Learning Sticky, is the name of Debbie's first book. In her consultation, co-teaching, and writing, Debbie prioritizes tools that ignite and amplify learning and empower student voice. Once a self-described struggling teacher, Debbie discovered her confidence and voice as she helped staff and students discover theirs. Today, Debbie talks with me about how her journey as an instructional coach and author has been one of not only professional but personal transformation. We discuss the growth she's achieved through perseverance, an open-to-learning mindset, and the vulnerability needed to take risks. You may recall my discussion with episode 13 guest, educator and blogger Jan Moyer, about the power and paradox of vulnerability. There is risk in vulnerability. When we open ourselves to disclosing the things we don't know and the ways we've fallen short, we risk looking and feeling foolish, weak, wrong, or incomplete. Yet in vulnerability, there's the potential of strength and courage and authentic connection when we allow others to know us as complete but imperfect human beings. Debbie concludes that the more vulnerable she gets, the more she feels her work resonates with people. I believe that's because any imperfections, insecurities, doubts, or fears Debbie shares are also the things we all experience. Vulnerability is a risk worth taking. It invites others closer and gives them permission to be vulnerable too. Debbie wants others to know they're not alone and that connecting with other people is one of the things that can really turn you from good to great. Debbie hopes her journey can serve as a framework for you as you experience your own transformations and give yourself permission to just start. I know you'll love getting to know Debbie today, and after hearing her story, you'll be eager to connect with her too. So, here's my interview with Debbie Tannenbaum today on the Good News, Brad News podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Good News, Brad News podcast. I'm excited to be talking with Debbie Tannenbaum from Virginia in the U.S. Debbie, welcome to the Good News, Brad News podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Debbie, let's just dive right in and get started by hearing about your different roles, your personal, professional, your community roles. What would you like listeners to know about you?
Well, I am a mom. I have 4 children, ages 13 to 20. I'm a wife. I am also a dog mom. I am a blogger and an ed tech coach. And I am, as of this time of the recording, I am a published author. Yay!
Congratulations. You are literally doing all of the things.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's wonderful.
Debbie, tell me, what is sticky learning and how can technology tools help?
Early on in my tech coach career, I was finding my students were having trouble really using the technology. And I was listening to this podcast. Pana Asaftana was talking about how she had helped give her students, her kindergartners, handles to hold on to the technology. And that kind of brought that whole idea of that stickiness. And so what I started to do with my kindergarten students was I started to teach them icons. And by teaching them icons, it gave them something they could hold on to, and they were more successful. So as I continued to explore this, I realized this wasn't just good as far as icons go, but that there were ways that technology could help learning stick. It could give kids something to hold on to in a way that they might not have had without the technology. So that's kind of where the whole idea of Techy notes and sticky learning and all of that came from, because there are ways that technology can give us opportunities to learn and to cement our learning that we might not have without that technology.
Now, Debbie, your brand new book is called Transform, Techy Notes to Make Learning Sticky. What are you most excited about this release, and what outcomes are you hoping for as a newly published author?
I'm just so excited. Publishing a book was not something I had ever thought about before 2020. I kind of did it a little bit on a dare after a Twitter chat. I just had a story in my heart that I wanted to share. And when I was blogging, it just felt right. And as those blogs continued to build, I just knew that there was something out there. And I remember somebody telling me that my story is different than everyone else's. My story is not that perfect story where there was never any ups and downs. I've had ups and downs, but I've had ups and downs. And now I'm having this huge success that I could have never dreamed of. And it just really shows you that growth mindset and how if you persevere through things, you can really reach unbelievable heights. And I really want people who are reading this to really understand, yes, this is my journey, but I'm hoping that my journey can serve as a framework for others as they go through their own transformation. And I want them to understand that technology doesn't have to be difficult. Technology is about taking what we want that learning to be and finding technology tools that amplify that and help students reach those outcomes. It's not about, knowing 10,000 programs. It's about being really strategic, really thinking about, and I talk about 10 transform tech tools in my book, but really thinking about if you're picking a tech tool and it's not adding anything for your students, then it's not a good tech tool for your students. We have so little time with our students, especially this year. We really need to make the most of every moment.
When we talk technology, we can get caught up in the tools rather than the transformation. So, Debbie, how have you seen technology leveraged to improve human relationships among those that use the tools?
Well, I think that's just so important. This past year, we were, from the majority of this year in my district, virtual learning. And it's amazing. Before 2020, I don't think I had ever been on Zoom. I don't even know if I knew what it was. And I'm a tech person. It's just been amazing to see how some of these tools have allowed us to have connections that I could have never imagined. I mean, let's talk about you and I. We met through the Teach Better Admin Mastermind. You're in Canada, I'm in the United States. I would have never, ever have met you if it hadn't been for that. And yet for opportunities like the Teach Better Admin Mastermind, through those experiences, I've grown so much and learned so much through people in my PLN. I mean, I wouldn't have never listened to your podcast, and it's one of my favorites to listen to now. So I think that's important. But I also feel like because of the technology and because people were craving connections, especially as professional development goes, there's been so many more opportunities in this past year plus where people have really gotten a chance to learn, not just in their small districts, but really almost globally. I mean, I have connections and so do you, that we've made globally. And I think it's also important for our students because our students weren't able to go places, yet we were able to use that technology to give them the opportunities to go on field trips. We were able to give our students the opportunity to connect with each other. I think about the power of that breakout room and how for some kids who hadn't gotten a chance to see people in so long, they were able to connect, and how it helped our teachers to connect with our students. And yes, virtual learning was not perfect, but we've learned so many lessons through that. We've learned so many ways that, it's not just about seat time, it's about connection and that whole importance of, SEL and social emotional learning. And the technology provides us additional ways to do that. It really opens our classroom and makes our classrooms a global community, not just a small room in a school.
Debbie, you and I both know that there are countless sources of tech tips out there. What I find unique and really captivating about your blog at tannenbaumtech.com is that it also details a very human journey of growth and personal transformation through what you call adjacent possible moments. So what's that about, and why include these reflections in a techie blog space?
Well, I can't take credit for the adjacent possible. It's actually something I learned about on another podcast, Jake Miller's EDU Duct Tape podcast. And he talks about how certain moments lead to other moments and how they change things for you. And I feel like the last 2 years in particular have been many, many adjacent possible moments. And they've all been made possible through technology. And so that's kind of that link there. I think about all the changes. I decided to go for my year of challenge in 2020 because I went to ISTE and I tried things out of my comfort zone and realized I could do hard things. I started to present because I wanted to continue that challenge. I've met so many amazing people who've changed my life through technology. My publisher, I met him through Twitter. The first time I DM'd him was December 24th, 2020. And now I'm a published author. It's really hit me as I look through my blog that it's not just about the tech tips, because the tech tips are important, but it's also about modeling a risk-taking mentality and that growth mindset. And honestly, the more vulnerable I get, the more I feel like my blog resonates. Last year I read Tara Martin's Be Real book, and she talks about exposing that vulnerability. And I really embraced that. And when I first started blogging, I was a little bit more reserved. But now I just kind of put it out there because I want teachers to know they're not alone. I was alone for a long time as a teacher, and I thought it was just me. And it's not just me or just you or just whoever. If you're not a connected educator and you're not connecting with other people, then you're missing something that really will turn you from being good to great. And I think I was okay before I was a connected educator, but now I really value what I get out of these interactions and what I can, that whole idea of paying it forward. I want to help others like others have helped me, because I've had some amazing people in my life the last 2 years who've taken me from just my husband believing in me to helping me take those strategic steps to be like, oh, wait a minute, I have something special here and I'm going to share it with others.
Debbie, in a recent blog post, you wrote that awesome things can happen when you believe in yourself and take small strategic steps to get there. What would you suggest to someone that senses that spark, that potential for transformation, but doesn't yet know what it means or how to begin?
I think it's really a process of self-discovery. One of the things that I'm hoping is really coming through as we're talking is that as I'm talking, I'm mentioning other people who really kind of help me reach those moments. So for example, for this one, this past couple months, I've been doing Ignite Your Legacy with Lindsay Titus. And we really spent a significant amount of time, it's a 12-week course, talking about our identity and really deciding who we are and what we want and who was our future self. And that type of exploration is just so important. But it's not something that just happens overnight. You really do have to dig deep, and you really have to say, well, what am I doing? And what things am I saying to myself and stories I'm telling to myself that aren't necessarily true? I grew up with a lot of paranoia and things like that in my life. And I kind of think I grew up thinking people were, maybe out to get me a little bit. I don't feel that way anymore. The world is out there and I enjoy it. And it's such a much more joyous way to live. But, really that whole idea of self-love and that self-care is so important. Educators now, we have a harder job than ever. Not only are we competing against all of these other technologies, but now we're even we have to make sure we're getting enough time with the limited time we have. So if you are sensing that spark and you think something's out there, it's really important to really explore who you are and understand that it isn't going to be a complete change. I just read Atomic Habits, that idea of 1% better each day, and really finding small ways to get there. When I first started writing my book, I started with letters, and then they became words, and then they became sentences, and then they became paragraphs and chapters, and finally a book. But it started with that first letter. And sometimes the hardest thing for us to do is to just get started because it's scary. And I've really learned especially in the last couple of months, that when you're scared, that's a sign that you're leveling up. And so I've really, really, really been trying to continue to push that. And I want my kids to see that. And I want my students to see that. I want them to see those things because I didn't grow up seeing those things. And I think it's just so important. So if somebody wants to take that step, get connected, because you can't do it alone. None of us can do this alone. I think that's just so important to remember.
As you continue to contemplate and get excited about your next steps, Debbie, what is next for you? What has you fired up?
I'm kind of trying to figure that out right now. I'm really excited about my book. I have a lot of really great presentations, so I'm really excited about that. But I just love connecting with other educators. I'm also trying to determine my next best steps for next year. I want to be able to continue to expand and grow in my tech coaching role. After having done a lot of that identity work, it's really become clear to me how I envision that. And so I want to make sure that I can continue forward with that. I'm also now a business owner, so I'm hoping to do some work on the side with Tannenbaum Tech. And I'm hoping to, maybe in the next year, dig into doing some courses and things like that. I really want to make sure that I can share some of the things, because I know when I sit through professional development, how sometimes it doesn't resonate with me. I want to be able to give people what I wished I could have. And so some of the work that I've been doing through Tannenbaum Tech, even with some of the coaching, I'm able to help people. And that's the goal. I want to help people. I don't want it to be something else that's added to their plate, but I want to give them practical tips that are going to make their learning stickier and help their students gain those opportunities, because we all have to work smarter, because if we continue to work harder, we're all going to burn out.
Debbie, I know that listeners are going to be eager to get connected and to stay connected with you. What are the best ways for them to do that?
The best way is probably through Twitter. I'm Tannenbaum Tech on Twitter. I'm Tannenbaum Tech pretty much on all social media except for Facebook. So that's a great way. Also, my website is tannenbaumtech.com. So you can definitely reach me there. And there's tons of information in there. There's my blog. If you're interested in learning more about working with me, there's information there. And then I guess finally, go check out my book on Amazon. I really am looking forward to connecting with people. In the book, there's QR codes that will actually give you some possibilities of doing some training, self-guided trainings, some examples of actually seeing some things that were done in the classrooms that I worked in. I just want everybody to be able to have those opportunities. What I've found as I've been reading different books is that every book I read gives me something new that kind of adds on to who I want to be and who I am. And I just hope that my book resonates. And I know based on at least the people who've read it, they felt like it did. And that just makes me so happy. I wrote it for me. And the fact that it's resonating with other people just tells me that it was absolutely the right way to go.
Debbie, I have so enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking forward to not only staying in touch with you, but looking forward to seeing how your book and your influence in other people's personal and professional lives continues to grow. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Good News Brad News Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. And if you like what you heard, please recommend Good News, Brad News to a friend. And please hit me up on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at Brad, BRAD, _Hughes, HUGHES. I look forward to hearing from you and to reconnecting with you on our next episode. Until then, get out there and do amazing things.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.